What's up everyone, welcome back to Tank Control Games. This is part 2 of my laser rifle tutorial using effects from Epic's free Niagara VFX sample project. In the last episode we got the weapon fully working through charging and releasing, so the charge builds up correctly and cancels if the player stops the input. In this episode we're going to be finishing up the weapon by setting up the firing logic, building the continuous beam, and adding the impact effects and final polish to bring everything together. Alright, let's jump back in. Okay, so I'm going to do kind of some overall comments across some of this just to make it super clear what's going on. So we're going to just section off this bit of code here. We'll call it fire input rest, and we'll just add the bubble zoomed and color bubbles so when we zoom out we can see it from far away. And then we're going to take all the logic here to here. Let's comment and call this charge laser. And then down here up until checking if the charge is ready, we'll comment and we'll say input released or charge complete, because we're using it in both scenarios. And then this will comment and say charge ready, because we're doing our check there. So I think this breaks it down into kind of the high level portions of what the code's doing, just because it's getting, it's a lot of nodes. It can get pretty hard to remember what each section's doing, and I think this makes it a lot clearer. And then let's also take these nodes and we'll just, again, make this purple because it's effects. And then after our charge ready, now we can actually implement how we're going to fire. So on true, what we can do is the first thing is set our cooldown, which is a variable that's in the weapon base, if you remember. And we use that to actually gate when you can fire again. This is basically you're ready to fire. Now we want to set our cooldown and kind of start that timer for the cooldown. So let's get our variable, or actually let's set cooldown, which is going to pull it from your BP weapon base. And then we're going to set it to be what the fire rate is, as long as we're setting that over here. So we can just get firing rate. And I think we set it to 10 in our character. So let's comment that. We'll just make that green because this is a timing. Then now we can start our fire shake. So when you initially fire, we want kind of like a bigger shake that triggers just temporarily, it's kind of like the release of energy. So what we can do is get start legacy camera shake again. And then let's just copy our nodes from up here. And then for the camera shake class, let's just do the fire. So this is going to have that big burst and then stop. And I believe in our settings here, we set oscillation duration to 0.5. So it's only going to trigger for a little bit and then stop. So we hook that up like that. And then after that, we want to start our looping shake, which is going to be kind of a subtler shake, but this is like as the laser's firing, you want like a little bit of movement. So we made that our laser shake beam. And then this one, since we will have to stop it later, since it is going to loop if we don't, we'll promote it to a variable. And we'll just call it beam shake. And let's just comment those nodes orange because they're camera shakes. Next, what we're going to do is get a set timer by function name node. And then we haven't actually created this function yet, but for time, we're going to want it to be 0.01. And then we're going to set it to be looping, and then drag off the return value to promote to variable, and we'll promote this to a variable that we'll call laser fire timer. And then you can just highlight this section green. And then after we set that timer, what we're going to do is we're going to play a sound 2D, and the sound is going to be our laser fire sound. So, when the big burst of energy happens, then we also want to have that kind of sound to go with it. And right after that, we want to trigger the looping sound, so like the actual beam firing, that's just going to keep going until you're done firing. So let's do spawn and play sound function. And then for the sound, it's going to be our laser beam. And then we can drag off of out component and do promote to variable, and we can call this fire audio loop, or maybe beam audio loop. That'll be better actually. And then one thing we need to do here too is we have to actually plug that same component into the audio component input. And I don't think we did that before as well, but that'll stop you from having to spawn it every time. So let's also do that up here for our charge audio loop. And let's just comment both of these sections blue because they're audio. And then we need to activate our beam effect. So let's actually get our beam and do activate. And then at the very end, what we're going to do is we're going to get current game time in seconds, get game time seconds, and then promote this to a variable that we're going to call fire start time, and hook that up right at the end. So let's comment this as purple and comment this as green. Okay, so now we can comment this whole section, and we'll just call this fire laser start. Then what we need to do now is actually create the looping portion of the logic. So where we set our timer by function, we need to actually make this function. So let's create a new custom event, and we'll just call this fire laser. And let's copy that name and just paste that into the function name here. So now when that triggers, it's gonna jump us down here and start looping this function. So off of fire laser, the first thing we're gonna do is call our fire FX function, which is found in the weapon base. Every weapon has this function, but we're gonna override it and we're gonna do something different than what it's doing here. So in fire laser, let's go to functions, and you'll see 29 overridable, and just find that fire FX function. And then for this function, you don't actually have to play what the parent's doing. It won't fire anyways, so you can just disconnect that. And then what we want to do is actually drag off of type and get switch on name. And then let's add a pin, and we're going to add the name that we set in our gallery character, which I think is just laser beam. And if you have different fire types for different lasers, you can, you'll be able to actually switch it here. But off of laser beam, what we can then do is we want the line trace function that BP weapon base does. So if we right click and search line trace, you'll see target BP weapon base, and the other weapons use this as well. If you double click in there, it'll open up BP weapon base, and it'll show you what this function does. But basically, when test fire is true, does a trace from the weapon socket, and then based on the range, extends the trace out. So you can modify the range and set it to be whatever you want, but I'm gonna leave everything here as default. So then if we go back to our laser rifle, so we'll do the trace, and then we're gonna break the hit result. And then what we can do is we can get location and get a select node. And then we only want to use location when you have a blocking hit. So make sure that's on the true. Hook blocking hit to the index, and then location to true, and for false, it's going to be trace end. So basically, if you hit something, you will go to the location of what you hit, but if you're aiming just into the sky or at nothing, then it's just going to go to the trace end. And we're going to use this to set our laser positions. So let's drag out our charge, and then if you remember, our charge is the Tesla coil effect. And if we go to our gallery level and we walk our character into the radius of the Tesla coil, you'll see the electricity kind of zaps to our location. And we can do that by setting a user variable in the effect. So if we go back to our laser rifle, and then drag off our charge, and we're actually just going to get the same node that we are setting to reset the effect, which is this one here. So let's actually just copy both of these because we want to set these, and then go into our fire FX, just paste these both, and both are going to use the same location. So you can just hook that up like that, and then hook this up through the line trace. And then for our beam too, because we set that beam end up, this will just point our beam wherever we're aiming. Okay, so back in our laser rifle, let's get our fire FX function, and then just get our type variable and hook it up like that. Next, what we're going to do is check how long have we been firing the laser. So we can get aim time in seconds, and we can subtract our fire start time, and then check if that is greater than our laser fire duration, which we haven't made a variable for yet. So let's promote that to a variable, call it laser fire duration. And I'm just going to set mine to 4, so 4 seconds. And you can tweak this to whatever you want it to be. And then let's add a branch. and hook it up just like that. So we'll comment this section, and this will be for timing, and then this will be for effects. So let's actually comment this whole section because this is all the fire loop. So we'll just call it fire laser loop. Okay, so next we'll work on the fire cooldown logic. So we know if the fire is supposed to be done based on this, and if it is supposed to be complete, then this will fire true. And what we want to do is first deactivate both the charge and the beam. So let's get both of those, drag them out, and do deactivate. And we'll just comment that for effects. Then what we want to do is fade out the fire beam sound. So let's find our beam audio loop and just do fade out. And we'll do fade out duration 0.1. And we'll just comment that for audio. Then we want to stop our beam camera shake. So let's find that shake, beam shake, and we will do stop camera shake, but we can just copy the nodes that we previously had here. But then just hook up our beam shake. We'll set that to be camera shake color. Then we want to start the cooldown sound. And the way we can do that is play sound 2D. And this one's not going to loop, so it's just going to be laser cooldown. I have two different versions of this, but I'm just going to use the first one. And we'll just make that audio. Then now what we're going to do here, it's we're going to get a sequence node. And then the first thing we're going to do is activate the smoke effect. So like after your gun has fired the laser, you want like some smoke kind of coming out of the muzzle. So what we can do is get our smoke, do activate, and then we can get a delay node, promote the duration to a variable, and we'll call it weapon smoke delay, or weapon smoke duration rather. And I'm going to set mine to 2. And then after that duration is complete, then we want to deactivate the effect. Just like that. And we'll comment that section and just make it purple because it's all in effect. And then after that, you want to clear and invalidate the timer just to reset everything. So let's get our timer handle. Just search for clear, and we'll just comment that and we'll make it green because it's a timer. And that is basically the whole system set up. So the last thing before testing, let's also just add another way that we can debug. So let's get our event tick. And then when you get this node, you have to run the parent because we're doing some important logic on the weapon base on tick. So what you can do is right click on the node itself and then do add call to parent function. And then just hook up delta seconds to delta seconds of the parent tick. And then this will just ensure that we're running all of the logic off of tick on our parent class. And then what we can do is get a branch, and then the branch can be our cooldown. So let's get our cooldown variable, and we're gonna just check if it's less than or equal to 0. So we're gonna check if the cooldown is still active, and when it is active, we wanna print out some debug information just showing us the countdown. So to do that, we can drag off of our in string, get append, and then for A, it can be cooldown seconds remaining. And then for B, let's get our cooldown and round it so it's an int, and then just hook that up there. So super simple, but it'll just show us kind of the countdown happening. And let's comment this whole section, and we're gonna make this yellow for debug. Say debug, play, and see what happens. So our charge is working. Yep, now our laser is firing. Our sparks are going to the end, and our steam is coming off. But we did not actually set the position of our beam or our steam correctly yet, so let's go back to our laser rifle. Go to our beam, and we're gonna make this come off the muzzle. And then if we go to our smoke, we also want that to come off the muzzle. And our charge is correct. It's like slightly offset from the muzzle. So let's click play again. Yep, there you go. So our laser's working. All of the pieces are working together. Let's just test like canceling out the fire. So we charge and let go and it stops. And then if we get past 50 for a charge, it should fire. So yep. And you release. If you hold to 100, it'll fire, but if you release at 50, it'll fire as well. So, but I am noticing that our cooldown is not starting. So after we fire, we're able to fire again immediately. And I bet this is because we forgot to set our laser beam cooldown value, which it's at 0 in mine. So just set that to something like 10. And then now if we click play again, yep, our cooldown starts. If I try to click again and fire, it won't let me. And then until the countdown is back to 0, now we can fire again. So one last thing, we'll just set this to night, just so we can see it in the darker light. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. Alright, so that's going to wrap it up for this video. I know it was on the longer side, so thanks for sticking with me all the way to the end. Hopefully this gave you some good ideas on how you can take these free assets from Epic and extend them into something cool. This charging setup for the rifle is also really flexible. You can use this approach for all kinds of weapons by creating subclasses and building on top of it. If you found this tutorial helpful, please consider liking and subscribing and joining our Discord community. It's a great place to share what you've been working on, ask Unreal questions, and connect with other devs. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.